This podcast is a part of the More Podcast Network.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Daily Leader Podcast by Pattern Talent, where we interview great leaders and we seek to understand leadership. I'm Brad McDonald.
And I'm Taylor Jessup, and we really hope that you enjoy this episode. Daily Leader, and it looks a little bit different today. I upgraded my Brad, is what I'm going to say. So, Brad, we brought you back to replace other Brad because he's having babies. So I hope you're okay
Good
with
for
that.
him.
Yeah,
I'm okay with it, but yeah. I don't feel his pain, but I do empathize with it.
Yes, you have kids.
I have kids.
So,
I have four. They're all grown.
Yeah,
youngest
you know
15.
like.
So
there's a chance that our viewers on the Daily Leader may just be like, "Hey, don't bring that other Brad back."
okay.
I don't know if that might just happen.
That's not my desire.
No.
Yeah.
Well, that's okay. That's all right. I don't know.
God moves his people, man.
Yeah, that's right, man. We'll, as Brad would say, we'll wrestle with those tensions when we come to it. If that's what the people want, I don't know what to do. You know, may just have to do more with this crew here. But man, this is going to be fun. We've got Chance in here today, and I'm going to let you introduce him a little bit. But yeah, just tell me about you and Chance, and you can introduce him, and then love to hear your story, man.
I'm excited. Definitely about to be introduced to a tender and tough dude.
Yeah.
Great story. He and I connected. I actually was pastor at a church, which Chance probably tell you, he wanted nothing to do with pastors at church
At that time.
but we connected over our stories, and some of that was painful. And that pain actually allowed us, I think, to open up a channel of communication. So he's authentic. As I've gotten to learn his passion and his why behind what he does professionally, I think people want to hear that story, and those pieces are meaningful. So we're grateful to have him, grateful for how he is leading in the context of transforming not just young people's lives, but young people's lives as well as families.
Yeah.
So it's gonna be good.
Dude, that's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, pumped. It is interesting to me when you said that, like, hey, sometimes those painful circumstances can really build like connection with people if we allow them to.
I think pain, if it has the proper perspective, has a chance to put us on a path to purpose.
Yeah.
If not, it can screw a lot of things up in our lives, you know?
Yeah, totally. It's just one or the other, right? We either run from that pain, we can avoid it, we can go into addiction, we can, leverage that way, or we can press into the pain, which is what we were joking about, beforehand of like, man, when you're exercising and you feel that pain, you can either run away from it or press in. If you lean into that pain, man, there's a lot of incredible gains that you can get. So that's great. Chance, would you do me a favor, man? I'd love to hear your story. So tell me a little bit more about yourself, kind of your history, and all the way kind of up to where you are in RedLine at the moment.
Well, I mean, it's been a long ride to get to where I'm at today, for sure. A little bit about, I guess, my background and maybe education and experience. Definitely come from an athletic family, athletic background, love sports, always loved sports. And had a unfortunate injury, which we talked about earlier, but sports kind of got taken away from me senior year in high school. But that said, exercise kind of became my new sport. Like, it's something you can compete with yourself or compete with others. And there's all sorts of other benefits of it, of course. And so when I was at college, chose exercise science as my major, more so because I thought it would get me out of bed to go to class and I could pay attention and actually maybe be excited to go. There were a lot of selfish motives around it. I didn't really think of what I would do with that for a career until I graduated sometime later. But, with that degree, you get kind of pushed into this fitness profession and then trying to help other people achieve their goals, which, has its rewards and its benefits. I think there were parts of that I was really good at, parts of that I wasn't so good at. And ultimately, I found I was good at selling fitness and not so much like taking somebody by the hand down a path of transformation themselves. So worked for a company, a big box gym here in Arizona. and became fitness director, VP of sales, eventually regional developer in there before I exited that company. And I exited that company to come to the company that I'm with now. And what had changed in my life, I got married, had 2 kids, and then this opportunity with RedLine Athletics came to pass. It was funny at the time. All I'd really done is sales to that point, and they were looking for a COO. And to be candid, like the C in the COO, I was really drawn to. But I just figured operations. I mean, any salesperson like has enough confidence to say, like, I'll figure it out, you know? But my background and actually the owner of the company were very, very similar. He comes from big box fitness as well. So we hit it off. And he actually loved the fact that I had a sales background. And so I originally came on to RedLine as a COO and later transitioned to CEO, which has a whole story in itself. That's kind of funny, but and so I've been with this company, now 7 years. And I truly, truly, truly feel like this is my calling. You know, like there's jobs and there's paychecks. But like, this is what I'm called to do. And what I mean by that is like, God gives me the endurance, to almost 24/7, like love this job and what I'm doing and what we're doing, for communities and families, in general. So, yeah, it's been a long road to get to here, but man, I'm exactly where God wants me. And, I'm just, you know, I'm excited for him to continue to use me to shape this company, because it's been the most rewarding thing I could have ever dreamed of, for sure. And there's so much work to do. Like, we're not at the finish line, but it's been fun to get to this point.
Love that. Tell me a little bit more about like RedLine Athletics.
Well, thank you for asking. We're a sports performance brand or an athletic development brand. Okay, so we work almost exclusively with kids, ages 8 to 18. So do you have kids?
I got 2 little babies. They're
Young
not quite
ones.
there yet. They're about 8 weeks.
Yeah, that is too young.
But they're in the pipeline.
It's slightly too young. But we work with kids ages 8 to 18. And at some point, you're going to look at your twins and say, you know, I really love watching them play sports. I want them to get more out of sports than they're currently getting. And I want to give them all the tools that I can give them so that they can develop and reach their potential, whatever that might be, you know? And I think that's key. Like, every kid has a potential, right? Like my son and my daughter have different potentials. Your kids have different potentials than mine. But like, our job is to help them reach that potential, whatever it might be. And I think, you know, some misconceptions are like, my kid has to be elite to partake in athletic development. That's not the case. Like, if you were to go into a RedLine today, you're going to see all across the spectrum from, you know, possible D1, you know, full ride scholarships one day to hopefully they'll make the team one day. So it's everything in between.
Love that, man. I love that. I wondering, because I think we talked about it, Brad, when you came on too, like, do you guys focus on, or what, let me rephrase it this way. What's the importance? Because I feel like there's ton in just terms of kids being just active, right?
Totally, man. I can't tell you how many of the kids next door are there for that reason. You know, like, kids are so captivated by screens these days. They go to school for 8 hours and sit still for 8 hours, which is just wild if you think about it. And then they go home and sit in front of a screen until they go to bed. I just don't think we're really wired to do that. We've been conditioned to do that, but there's definitely kids that are in RedLines all across America where the parents are like, I just have to get them off the screen. And they'll bring them in and we'll get them active. You know, and schools are doing away with PE programs and all of that. Like, it's just encouraging them to be more and more still. And so, yeah, there is absolutely that factor in there. And there are probably more kids than you would think that are there because their parents just want them to move. And for us, it's like, we just have to create a fun environment to where movement doesn't feel like exercise. You know, it's more of a game. It's more of a competition. It's more of teamwork. And you could bring all of those assets into it. And it's not like, remember like PE, like running the mile, like that was awful. Everybody hates that. But if we're playing a game, it's fun, right? So yeah, there's definitely parents in there that just want their kids to be active or get them interested in possibly playing a sport, which is there too, for sure.
That's super good. I was just listening to the Huberman podcast today, and it was actually on gut health. But the gal that he brought on was talking about the fact that we spend something like 93% of our days indoors, like 93% of our day indoor, and much of that, like you said, in front of a screen, sitting down and not even standing. I've got I don't know about you guys. I have a standing desk these days, which at least helps me.
That was a subtle flex.
Well, I just read the National Institute of Play said that all sociopaths, when they studied the research as children, they actually didn't have play as a part of their life. So, I mean, you're really saving the world.
That's
what you're doing.
Praise
That's right.
I mean, that's the statistical data on it.
Yeah,
It's
right
crazy.
there, man.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
Jeez. Yeah.
Did you make that up or is that real?
That's for real.
Okay. I mean, that's going to be in all of our marketing materials.
It's the National Institute of Play. You got to read the book. It's actually a whole book called Play.
Which is the book's called Play.
It's called Play.
Okay.
And it's a doctor who basically stated that, and he's speaking that for adults.
Yeah.
Right. Like recently, I just played dodgeball with a bunch of grown men, and I'm going to be honest with you, I had a fantastic time. Threw out my arm, but I had a fantastic time. So I think it's crucial. I think that the piece that is really pretty incredible about what you've done, like we're being in a place like Scottsdale, Arizona, where we have a lot of former pro athletes, minor league athletes. And there is really this kind of craze of getting your 6-year-old kid on a travel baseball team and stuff like that. And we've talked about it. And I think even the way that you guys have been intentional, because you and I had this conversation about where, right, we're going to develop these elite athletes. And you started to make a shift towards really, which has become a mainstay of what you're doing, which is character development. And really building these kids and giving them your coaches and your staff. Talk a little bit about the passion behind that, your why, some of the stories that you kind of observe, because you're kind of a dude. I mean, let's be honest, dude. You're kind of a dude. Like you look at you and you're like, oh yeah, of course he does athletics or whatnot.
Dude's jacked, looks good.
But if we just pull back the Superman, shirt.
It's all soft underneath. To take it like back from inception, I was reading a book, and it's called The Power of Moments, and it's just about taking like otherwise overlooked, moments in time, and actually recognizing them for their significance and making them a memory that people will take with them. It's a great book. I recommend it. But so like that's kind of what I'm looking through the world, or looking the world through those lenses, is like creating moments. And obviously wondering how we can incorporate that in RedLine more, and at first blush is like it's an abstract thought. But I coach young kids, and at this time I was coaching a 6U football team. And we had one kid that was younger. He was 5. So the difference between 5 and 6 is actually pretty significant, especially by percentages. But so we had this 5-year-old, but he's like definitely everybody's favorite. Great kid. At one point, I even joked with him. He's 5, mind you. And I said, Griffin, do you like older chicks? He said, what do you mean, coach? I was like, do you know Swayze? And that's my daughter. I was like, do you like her? And he's like, yeah, I like her. I was like, okay, well, she could be yours. Like, he was that kind of a kid where I'm just messing with him. But like, I want my daughter to marry somebody like Griffin, right? So he's a great kid, adorable as well. Doesn't get a lot of playing time, but he's the dude on the sideline, literally like coming up with the cheers for all the kids on the field, and is not asking to play. He's having the time of his life. But he's younger, so he has that disadvantage. But we were at practice, and we were finishing practice, and we were doing some conditioning, which sounds horrible as a grown man, but these kids dig it. Like, they have fun and they compete. They want to know who's going to win everything. And we were doing something called suicides. And if you don't know what suicides are, it's just you run down there and you touch that line, and then you run down there and you touch that line, and then you run back, and we'll have a winner, right? So there's some agility, some speed in there. And, the kids are all on the starting block, and we send them off, and they run down to touch the first line. And Griffin, he's behind because his legs are shorter. He's a little bit younger. Great athlete, but he's behind. And the kids make the turn, and he makes the turn, and he takes like 2 steps, and then he stops. Then he goes back, touches the line, seemingly again, and then they finish, and Griffin is dead last, right? So, and if you're dead last, like people notice you're dead last, but he's like really far behind because he seemingly like went back to do the same thing again. And then it dawned on me, like what actually happened was like, he might have almost touched the line, but he didn't really touch the line. And I didn't know that. The kids didn't know that. His parents who were, off to the side didn't know that. But Griffin knew he didn't touch the line. So despite the fact that he was going to get dead last, he went back, touched the line, finished, and nobody says boo. So like that's a moment that happens. And you kind of piece together why it happened. And I think 99 times out of 100, like you just breeze over it. You might, give them a point, a nod, a wink. Hey, good job, Griffin. I saw what you did. But that's about it, right? So it kind of, at the moment, I kind of stopped everybody. And I told everybody to come in. Called the parents in too. Hey, come over here. Anybody see what happened? No. Did anybody see what happened with Griffin? No. What place did Griffin get? Got last, and the kids are like, they're putting that together. But do you know why he got last? Well, because he's slower or because he's younger or, there people are grasping at straws. It's like, no, he got last because he has something called integrity. And I know, does anybody here know what integrity means? Like, they don't know. Can you spell integrity? No. Like, they don't.
Parents can answer.
Parents, a hard time.
I don't know, they got to pull out their phone and type it in and autocorrect.
Totally. And really, like, integrity is just refusing to cut corners, to take a shortcut, to cheat a rep, or, to make things easier on yourself so that you can perform better. And so it dawned on me, like, one, I can give Griffin his flowers, like give him his credit. Like I can recognize Griffin right here. And I can make sure his parents know what Griffin did as well, which is equally cool. Like, parents love to hear when their kids do good stuff, so I'm told. My mom didn't get a lot of that. God bless her. But so I'm able to, make sure mom and dad know what Griffin did. I'm able to recognize Griffin in front of his peers, but almost more importantly, I'm able to introduce a concept to these young boys about what integrity is and what it looks like. And this action that Griffin just did that you can do as well is integrity. Because you can have a vocab word, you might know how to spell it, you can define it maybe, but still, like, in practice, you don't know what it looks like. But in sports, this stuff shows up all the time. In fitness, it shows up all the time. In gyms, it shows up all the time. CrossFit, it shows up all the time. Like, there's opportunities to cut corners. But just Griffin, inherently, I didn't teach him that. I doubt his parents taught him that. But he just was that way. So it was, reading this book, Power Moments, and then also seeing Griffin exemplify this for everybody else, like that's duplicatable. Like we could do that over and over and over again. So from there it was, I'm going to come up with 10 different attributes that I want our young athletes to possess. And we're going to, make it a word, a vocab word with a definition, but we're going to start pointing it out inside of RedLine when it happens, so that we can teach the kids what the actions are and they can duplicate those actions. But like we needed a bit of a reward system. So like, what can we do to really, make this a moment. And we just came up with these baller bands, man. They're like 20 cents. They don't cost much, but like they're super invaluable when we make a moment for a child and we're able to teach an attribute to 20, 30 other kids. And, you know, so far you think about, you know, Griffin and the kids, but the coaches, it takes an ordinary day for them and makes it extraordinary when they're able to do that for a kid. And then the phone calls to the parents or the text message or the walk outside to the car to tell mom and dad what the child did and look at their new wristband. And I want you to know what they did today to achieve that and what they taught the rest of the class. And, you know, good on you, mom, for what you're doing at home, because, you know, it's making an impact here at the Performance Center as well.
Yeah, man. That's really cool. I love that. I love that you're highlighting those, like you are creating a moment for these kids. And I'm going to go back to Huberman because I've been a big Huberman science labs, like getting into that. Are you guys ever listening to him?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
All the time.
I enjoy.
I think maybe you've elevated him.
Too high? Like,
he's great.
like, hey man, bring him down just a little
Yeah,
bit.
just
We said we're going to get him on the podcast one day.
like it.
All of our 7 watchers, our subscribers, and Andrew Huberman. But man, it's almost like you've created this moment. I was even thinking like, and a positive dopamine hit for these kids of like, hey, remember this. Remember the moment, Griffin, when like you went back and you touched that line. Like as you are getting older, like I wish like you're doing that in the athletic world. I wish more of our companies would do that. Like, hey, highlight the moment, not when you hit the sale and you finish first, but highlight the moment when somebody didn't cut the corner.
That's right. Well, I tell you, funny you say that. This last year at our leadership conference, so we have 10 attributes. I'll list them off for you just so you know what they are. But courage, attitude, effort, integrity, perseverance, sacrifice, coachability, leadership, composure, and compassion. A lot of these are definitely Christ-centered attributes. That's, you know, part of the inspiration for the whole movement. I just felt like, you know, of course, it's, you know, people are bringing their athletes to us to make them more powerful, stronger, faster, jump higher, et cetera. But like, what are we going to give these kids that they can leave with that will never expire and never grow old and never, you know, like, we're not going to be fast forever, right? Like that's going to be fleeting, that can go away. But like, how do we shape these kids in a way to when they go to their, you know, their club team, the coach notices there's something different about this athlete? Because you've had them, man. Like, you know, the ones that stick out. It's typically the ones that are, you know, coachable and they're, you know, sacrificing, et cetera, et cetera. But anyway, man, like I really felt called to do something with our platform that was more than just speed and agility, right? Like we needed to blow up the value balloon. And we did that through character development, and I think we could change communities in doing that. But back to the point of adults and work. So last year, we had our leadership conference, and we just took every one of those attributes, and we recognized all of our employees with one of them, and then we're able to kind of give a reason, something that they did that, you know, achieved that for them. And it was the coolest thing. Like, they loved it. We loved it. And it cost 20 cents, which was even better. But everybody wins. Like, you know, like we're used to buying these, you know, ridiculous. Yeah. But we gave them a 20-cent band, but actually attach it to something personal to them that they did that we saw that they maybe didn't know that we saw. Like I remember the gal who I gave the integrity award to, and it was special. Like, she did something she didn't have to do. Like, I wouldn't have known if she did it otherwise, but just based on who she is as a person, chose to do it the right way. And those people need to be recognized, and we got to create moments for those people too. So it goes a long way.
When you talk about calling, oftentimes a calling comes out of chaos. Because basically you have a choice in this life. You've been a victim. You can choose to be a villain, or you can choose to be a hero. Basically, I was wronged, and I'm gonna hurt others, or I was wrong, and I'm gonna make sure nobody else gets hurt. I wonder, in the journey of you developing as a leader, and what you choose to put your attention to creating these moments for these kids isn't rooted somewhere in some wrong that's happened over the course of life where people have lacked integrity and they've lacked character, which is a big thing that's missing. Our culture is just wrought with a lot of rottenness or whatnot. But when you think about leadership as it pertains to character development, the weight and how you view it, but like you're carrying probably a large weight, right? Like to talk about building character into kids or whatnot. But where's the value? How does it actually executed across the board, right? So these are high and lofty deals, and it's not about the perfection of the kids; it's about the growth and the development as well as you. But
well, I mean, if we look at leadership, I wanted to create definitions that I thought were digestible for young people. But leadership is using one's influence to serve others or redirect them towards success. And that's leadership. And I think, something that I had to learn that was never taught to me. I didn't have a leadership class in college. I don't know if you guys did, but that wasn't a part of the exercise science curriculum. And I don't necessarily believe I had it modeled for me in a positive way growing up or even into corporate America. I don't know that I've had a great leader. And subsequently, I don't think I ever was a great leader either. And that was a conclusion that I came to. Like I started working with a leadership coach, and probably you get into one session, two session, you're kind of giving them like the interview version of you, the best version. And I came to an epiphany that like, based on what this man is telling me that leadership is, like I'm not that. I've never been that. And these are all foreign concepts to me, and which was humbling, like there was two paths that I could go. It was like, I'm going to quit working with this coach because he makes me feel bad about me and I'm uncomfortable and I don't need that in my life. And, the concept that he was trying to give me is like, leadership has nothing to do with me. It has to do with the people or the person that you're trying to lead. It's about finding out what they want to do and help them achieve what they want to do. You might get that even in the definition that I gave you, but I thought leadership was about me. Like I need to be this way, that way, and the other way. So, I came to this crossroads, and the conversation I had with myself, it was like, I got to a point where I said, introspectively, like, Chance, can you believe how far you got being an awful leader? Like, praise be to God, right? So, like, I am a CEO.
Or a self-centered individual. Is that what you're saying?
You call it whatever. Yes, it was all bad. But, like, and still, here I am. And then, like, the next thought was, what if I get good at that? Imagine what I can accomplish if I get good at being a leader. And, that was probably 24 months ago. And so the process started. But it was, it was an exciting moment in time for me and not demoralizing. And it wasn't something I was going to run from, but it was like, man, just the ceiling just exploded. Like there is no cap. Like I can go and go and go if I can get good at this thing. And I need to get a lot less worried about me and a lot more focused on others. And we'll see where this thing can go, and as in franchising, it's different than corporate America because these people don't work for me. Like I can't write them up. I can't send them home. Like, and breaking up with them is not good for me either. So like that's the one thing you can do is try to like, dissolve the relationship. But I don't want to do that. That's not winning for anybody. But like people have a choice in the matter. They're like, yeah, maybe I'll do that, but maybe I won't. So you have to create a magnet that's just strong, that pulls people in your direction. And there was a moment deep into my leadership development where it struck me, man. Like there's two types of leaders. Let's say we have a flock of sheep, okay? And then we have to move them from here to across the street, right? There's different ways we can go about that. We can get a shepherd dog, maybe do some barking and some gnashing of the teeth, and we can have a staff, and we can come behind them and hit them and move them from behind, push them to where we need them to go. And arguably, that's the more efficient way to lead. Like, you can move people fast by barking, loud noises, hitting them, etc. That can move people. But then you look at leadership from the front. And, like the Bible goes into, the shepherd analogy often. Like the sheep know his voice and they follow him because they trust that he's going to take them to green pastures and, cold streams of water, etc. And a leader, like Jesus, could walk in front and just essentially sing a song and the sheep hear it and they go where he goes. And I mean, that's the type of leader I was not, right? Like, but at least that was a model of something I could strive for. So it's like, okay, what's missing? Well, the sheep trust him, clearly. So it's like, okay, I have to work on trust. I have to develop trust. Okay, what does that mean? Like, I have to start like connecting with people, on a personal, regular basis, as opposed to just firing off an email, which is communication. I had to start connecting instead of communicating, which is completely foreign to me at this point in my life. I was addicted to efficiency. The only problem is if you're leading and nobody's following you, you're just wandering around. And that was kind of the spot that I felt that I was in. So it's like, why won't people do what I ask them to do? Well, because you're lacking all of these leadership traits. And it's going to take you a year, maybe 2, maybe 10, to like really create a strong enough magnet where people will go where you go, where you can whistle a song and people will follow wherever you're going.
I got like so many thoughts in what you're saying.
That was so deep, man.
It was, but part of it is like I was leading, maybe not effectively. My mindset shifted, and I've heard being integrated is comprised of 3 parts. It's mindset, motivation, and methods. Meaning, and you talked kind of a lot about that, but when you have all 3 firing, right? So your mindset was me. You put your mindset on them, which is a shift. And then your motivation started changing from you to them. Now you're shaping. Maybe Griffin's story impacted you, maybe looking around, and then you're looking in the mirror, and then you started shifting your methods, which the truth is that we hear so much in culture of leadership, like, hire slow, fire fast, right? So if somebody's not living up to it, but you change the game and the script a little bit, like instead of just communicating, I'm going to connect. Because I've determined and made a decision, which could be great for leaders out there. What kind of leader do you want to be? You want to beat them? You want to, use your staff? You want to use your words? Is it all about you? Is it all about you have that choice, and it can actually be effective until you have to look at yourself in the mirror at a certain point and determine that character development is significant. That's what I'm hearing a little bit. And then what am I going to do to build the type of man that will lead from this perspective that it's actually not about me. It's actually about them. And that is missing because someone told me in your 20s you chase adrenaline and thrills, in your 30s you chase workaholism and amassing, in your 40s you chase, in 50s, authority and power, right? And these deep-seated things in us is all about control and significance and comfort. And they're really like vanity. Solomon would say it's all vanity, man. But I think when we talk about this deeper part of what you're getting, like when you look at the man who made that decision, and you're honest, but it was producing. But what does it look like to look at a man who's now not just chasing the wind, but he's actually chasing, building something? Like every attribute you read to me, crazy enough, being a person who's raised in church, I didn't hear any of those tangible attributes when people were telling me to become like Jesus. So when I look at what Chance is building here, it's really practical and approachable. And then it's rewarded and it's emphasized and it's appreciated. I think to a lot of people, following Jesus, becoming like him is very ethereal. We're not sure. Maybe I wear a blue sash.
No. Yeah.
My hair is really long.
Grow out the beard. That's a trend.
Yeah, right. That's true. But this is highly tangible.
Yeah. There's so much that you shared there that I think would resonate with our listeners. And part of it is, honestly, I feel like a lot of people are probably coming to our channel wondering, hey, how do I become a better leader, and find themselves in that spot that you were in, which is, I haven't had that demonstrated, so how could I possibly do it? And what I found so amazing is you had the humility to go, okay, maybe I'm not very good at this. Like I've accomplished, a lot of people, like you're saying, would look at the accomplishments and go, hey, the track record is good. Crushed it in sales, crushed it as a COO, right? Crushed it as a CEO. But you're going, hey, I'm not this good at it. Like I could get so much better. And what would that be like? You went out and got a guide that helped you realize, like, what one of the best things that I heard that I really hope our listeners hear is like, I did this 100X leader training, and the whole goal was, you don't want to be the climber that gets to the top of Everest. You want to be the guide, the Sherpa that helps a bunch of people get to the top of Everest, right? And you can perfect your craft on how you help them get to their goals and their desires, which is what Jesus does with us. He's like, man, like I'm going to help you get there. If you just come follow me, right? I'm going to help you get there. So,
seek first the kingdom of heaven, and everything else will be given to you.
It's all going to be there, right? Yeah. So here's my question. All right. So we have this, because I agree. I think in the religious sphere, often we are very vague. Yeah. Hey, follow Jesus. What does that look like? What does that practically look like? I think even in terms of leading teams and often leadership books, it can be very high level, but not as practical. And I think you're right. You've got some very practical stuff. And we have what's called a practicality corner, which is where I always say, hey, can you hit that jingle? Which is like I really want it to change to almost like the Wheel of Fortune, It's probably a little over the top. I'm sure the producers would be like, no, we're not going to do that. But what I want to know is like, hey, okay, practically, if somebody says, hey, okay, maybe I'm realizing I'm not the leader I want to be, where do they start, man? What would you encourage them to do? Because you've done a fantastic job of that.
Well, I'm going to plug my coach real quick. But yeah, his name is Steve Breitenstein, and he's with Winning Leader Academy. So find that dude. But don't take up so much of his time that he can't work with me anymore. But I think all improvement starts with the truth. We are deathly afraid of the truth. And you mentioned comfort. Like, we love to be comfortable, but nothing good happens in the comfort zone, man, nothing. So I think if you can get honest with yourself about, at least there's room for improvement. And the thing is, like, leadership is a constant evolution. Like, you'll never arrive. No matter where you're at today, you can get better. So it's not a destination, it's truly a journey. But I think you have to get honest with yourself and, ask yourself, like, am I as effective as I want to be? Like, is the current version of who I am today good enough to take me and this company to where we want to go? And if you say yes, man, you're probably lying to yourself, like, honestly. But if you say no, I think that's where the opportunity lies. Like, you have an opportunity to get better. And I think, in practicality, for me, the shift was like, it's not about me, it's about them. And I need to figure out what their promised land is, or, what we would call like the difficult to achieve future that they're trying to make real for themselves or the people that they lead. What's their promised land? And if you know what's important to them, and hopefully you can create a safe enough space where they can, be vulnerable enough to really tell you that. And sometimes the promised land is not to work for you anymore. And that's okay, because you can harness that and you can actually help your company get better and grow because somebody else wants to go do something else someday. And that's okay. But you have to know where they want to go and make a commitment to partner with them to help them get there. And hopefully, even if it is outside of your company, that's okay, again. But like if you want them to work for you and to work hard, they need to know that you know what's important to them and you're able to paint things in a light that you can even tell them like, hey, I know you hate mopping the floor. It's the worst, right? Like I hate it. But I promise you, like it helps you, it'll help you get to where you want to go because it's teaching you X, Y, and Z, yada, yada, yada. But you have to be able to kind of connect even the mundane day-to-day things or the things that I'm asking you to do that you might not want to do. How can this help you get to your promised land? And I think we all need a promised land too. And not one, you can have 50 of them. Like you can have big ones, small ones, little ones. You can have a promised land of the week, of the year, whatever. But I think we need to know where we're trying to go so that we can make decisions based on that. And I think far too often we're just wandering around hoping that we'll get there. But if you have hard decisions to make, you can ask yourself, like, is this going to help me get closer to, or is it going to take me further away from my promised land? Further away? Okay, we're not doing that. Like if we all need, you can call it a vision, you can call it whatever you want, but like you need to know where you're trying to go. You need to know where the people who work for you are trying to go as well. And then all of a sudden you're bought into their story and you're aligning your story with their story and how that they could fit together. But it just takes time, it takes energy. I'll tell you, I laugh about it. Like this was a problem I was trying to fix. And I wouldn't say I'm good at it yet, but I'll go home with 40 unread text messages at the end of the day. It's like my magnet seems too strong sometimes. Like You've overconnected. I've overconnected, but now like I'm invested in them and they're invested in me, which is what I wanted. When I talk, people will at least listen now, which is good. But yeah, sometimes be careful what you wish for. It's better this way than it was before, though. Yeah, definitely a blessing.
It's hard, right? There's a reason why people don't do it.
Yeah.
It does take more energy. So what I heard you say, and I just want to make sure we break this down correctly, is one, we got to get honest and real with ourselves, which may be the hardest part, right? If you're a recovery person.
There's so much freedom in that, though.
Yeah.
Like all improvement, everything gets better from that point. Everything. So if maybe that's what the rabbit you have to be chasing is just getting better. How do I improve my situation? Let's get brutally honest about us and our role in this story. Are we the villain or are we the hero? Like who are we in this story? Because you can change who you are. You can't change anything else. But if it's you that's the problem, eureka, that's where all of the improvement can start today. But when it's like, oh, I'm the victim, it's their fault, man, it's tougher. It's tougher.
Yeah, it's hard, man. And it is, man, we live in a culture that glorifies people that are perceived as perfect. And then we love to also watch them fall. So
it's a farce.
Yeah,
man.
We have an interesting facade, but truthfully, the people that I'm most attracted to in life are those that are willing to be honest and real.
Everybody is though, bro. I truly believe everybody truly is. Yeah. We have tricked ourselves into chasing Mr. or Mrs. Perfect. Yeah. But if you were to I don't know, there's all these people on Instagram that paint themselves in this way, but when they start getting real, you start to like them more, not less. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know, we could give 100 examples, but last year at our leadership conference, I got up in front of my whole company and said, I'm not a good leader. And you're basically loading the gun and giving it to them and saying like, shoot me now. But nobody shot me. The magnet got so much stronger when it was like, hey, you deserve better. I deserve better. The company deserves better. The current version of me is not good enough to get to where we want to go. Like the change starts here today, and it starts with me. Like people rally around that. Like people love that, you know? And so I think don't subscribe to the myth that people want you to be perfect. They want you to be honest. They want you to be sincere. They want you to be vulnerable. Don't be self-deprecating, but there's a fine line there as well. But like, just be real. And make a commitment to improving and getting better. And that's what people want, you know? So anyway, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, that's great, man. That'll preach all day. Bring it, because I totally agree. I think as humans, we connect in the Me Too moments, and not often out of strength, but out of our weaknesses. And when somebody is humble and courageous enough to say, hey, this is the area of my life where actually I'm not super strong at. Like you said, not self-deprecating, like you don't need to do that, but like, hey, all right, I'm not the best leader. People go, God, I resonate with that. And then we can connect. And you just watch walls. This is my experience. You just watch walls come down, man. And when those walls come down, then the work can begin. Because what I heard you saying is, hey, get honest with yourself, get help, go find somebody to walk you through the journey. You know, if you want to go back to biblical times as an apprenticeship and you're following somebody, you're doing that, which we don't have a lot of in our culture because we want to be unique, which I think is also great, but it can really overshadow finding somebody to help you along in your own journey. And then really start to connect with people, figure out where your promised land is and theirs, and then you can start to really help them, man. And if all of that is bathed in humility, like freaking watch out. Like watch out, because you can do some damage, man.
Those are facts, man. Good summary.
Man, that's I hope our listeners hear what you're saying, because to me, the powerful stories are not the ones coming in where people are like, man, again, let me tell you how I crushed it in X, Y, and Z way. The more powerful stories, and actually the stories that we relate to as humans are, hey, let me tell you how I did something. I realized that I wasn't quite as good as I needed to be, and I wanted to get better. And then I did that. And that's what you've done, man. And like sitting here today, it's like, man, it's powerful stuff to be like, cool. I got 10 things that I'm coming back to. I'm giving out bands that are like, this is interesting. We talked about this on the podcast. Like people will throw, we gave out the corporate example of like, we're throwing a pizza party because we hit our goals. Right. And nobody cares. You can spend a bunch of money on gifts and nobody would care about that as much as a band that says, I see you, I know you, and I appreciate you.
Personalize it, right? Yeah, like make it a moment.
It's not a tactic. It's actually coming out of your heart. Funny part is you probably could make it a tactic.
Yeah, sure.
Right? If somebody's listening, like that's it. As opposed to the depth of what I'm listening to could be followed if you're looking at that framework, right? I basically found some insight from the outside, which let's not make that difficult, even though it is like you can ask somebody. Find somebody who's ahead of you in an area, set up a coffee, a conversation, overcome your fear and all the unmet expectations over the course of your life that you're living behind, and step into it. So
if you can't find said person, like pay somebody
read a book
to be that.
Yeah, I got thousands of them. That's where I found some.
They could
replay.
I think the accountability that comes along with a coach will make you move so much further faster. Like every week I have a new assignment, based on what's going on in my world, in my life. Like this last week, my assignment was to connect with, create a time and space to have a one-on-one call with every one of our regional developers. There's 23 of them. And like, I was going to send them an email, or maybe just an assignment or an attachment, but he's like, no, you got to call all of them. And what am I going to say? No, and I know I got to talk to dude again the next week. So I'm going to have to report back. And, he's texting me along the way, like, hey, how they going? What's going on? Blah, blah, blah. So like accountability, if you want behavior change, good luck in the absence of accountability. You're not that awesome. Like it's really hard. You talk about, it could be addiction. It could be anything in your life. But if you're trying to change who you are, your DNA, you're going to need some accountability. And if you can't find that person that sage, that blessing in your life, like pay somebody to be that. And, obviously don't just pay anybody to be that person, like do some research, get some recommendations, but it's worth it. It's so worth it. Like I will have a coach for the rest of my life. Unfortunately, I keep bringing scenarios to this dude and he keeps telling me how to fix it in a way that I would never have thought of, which is, I think that's a good business model. But like I can't get to the point where I think like this guy, That's good news, the bad news. But that's why I got to keep him around, because he's, challenging me to be a better leader in ways that maybe my brain will never get to. But I'll cheat off this dude all day long. I'll take his answers, I'll put them into practice, and I'll get a pat on the back, for doing it. But anyways, yeah, like we need those people, and especially leaders at the top need those people. Because if you're CEO of a company, you got nobody to talk to. You can't talk to your employees about your real problems. Your owner, if you have one, doesn't want to hear it. Your wife, sometimes, but like it's a lot for a wife to carry sometimes too. We need somebody to talk to. Lonely at the top. It is. There's just not a lot of CEOs helping CEOs out there. So it's good to get a coach, somebody who has an outside perspective that can guide you along your way. I don't think we're meant to do this alone. And that's kind of what we're forced into. It's isolation, whatever. But yeah, man, get some help. Even if you have to pay for it, it's an investment. It is not anything but.
No, we don't grow in isolation. There's just no way.
Or in your comfort zone.
Yeah. No. And that is a fascinating point, that when we get to the top, often I think the perception is, okay, the person at the top has the answers, and the person at the top is kind of going, well, there's two options, I guess. One is the person at the top really does believe that they have their own answers. And I think we've met that person. I've met that person. And that typically is kind of arrogant, and it's not humility that's attractive. The other kind of leader goes, hey man, I may not have all the answers, and I'm willing to go get help, even if I'm at the top. And the freedom to be able to do that and go, hey, I don't need to have all the answers. I just need to be able to be real and honest and go meet with somebody to help me get through this. They're really important.
I think someone said a lie. A good way to look at it as an acronym is a limiting idea you've entertained. So when you're sitting there holding a lie that I've got to know all the answers, because that's what's difficult about leadership. You think you should. So then until we realize there's a glitch in this system, so Chance said things like, hey, actually being authentic and vulnerable, it actually does produce, right? Or someone, what's the opposite of addiction? Isn't sobriety, it's connection. But there's all these things that we're operating by, and until you disrupt the operating system of it, and then you have more voices saying those things because it's proving to be true. And it's not that it's producing a better you because you're actually focused on serving them, then it's actually more rewarding. And what I think people are lacking is not likes on Instagram and money. They're lacking fulfillment as leaders. And I think what you're talking about to me is actually, that'd be a question to ask you. Even though it's tough, even though it's difficult, do you feel more fulfilled than before when you were just doing everything for, your name to be in lights, or not?
Yeah, I think it's back to the Sherpa example. Like, I bet you that dude is happier than all the people he took up there.
Right.
He's not getting the recognition. Like, that's just a day in the life for him.
Yeah.
But he gets to bring other people to their promised land and get to be a part of that. So
imagine at his grave, though, all those people who had that connection to where he took them. And that is the different. I think there's a choice in life. You can choose to not make the prioritization people and serving them, and think about all the kids, right? Whether they are or not, but the impact of what you'll have, right, is far greater than the day that all the U-Haul backs up and takes away all the stuff that you accumulated, all those lives and the legacies and generations and your children. There's definitely something.
You mentioned the grave. I think like the journey for the Sherpa is better, Like, I don't know about the grave, but he's living day to day and getting something great out of every day, helping other people arrive at their promised land. I think that's just a more fulfilling life in itself. And I think that's influence in itself. It's leadership. That's influence is helping others arrive. Hopefully you can make money doing that. I mean, that's what we're here to do, of course. But that's a shift, man, that I think it's easy to understand, but hard to put into practice. Is like, start doing things for the people you're leading instead of asking them to always do things for you, and it just takes time and investment, but I think it can be extremely fulfilling.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. Most of life would tell us one direction, which is, hey, seek to serve yourself, man. Get ahead. And I know, like, when we say it like that, everybody's like, ew, that's gross. But when we actually look at our lives, our culture, and like everything that we're in, that's what we're doing a lot of the time. But when we can actually start to be about others as we lead companies and teams and churches and organizations or whatever it is, when we're actually others focused, man, that is so much more fulfilling every time, like 100% of the time. I've never had a spot where I served somebody else and I got home and I was like, that wasn't worth it. So I love that, man. You've been friggin' awesome. I've really loved, just crushing it. Tell our listeners, man, because I'm like sitting here going like, God, I wish I was 18 again. I'd like love to come here and start working out. Like, hey, how do we find you? What does that look like? Who are you going after, in terms of RedLine?
Yeah, good questions, man. It's a franchise, national franchise. So we have 50 of them around the nation. So if we're not in your city, hopefully we're coming. If we're not in your city, you could be the person to bring us to your city as well. That's an opportunity, right? So, we run a regional developer model. So somebody could buy all of the licenses for their particular area, and then they would resell them at a profit and then collect royalties from that point forward. Most of our regions are pretty picked over, and most of the prime spots are gone, but there still are some left. But yeah, anybody who, I guess has a child that they want to put into a RedLine, RedLine franchise, or RedLineAthletics.com, just go there and you'll find one. See if we're in your area. And if you're interested in bringing one to your area, RedLineFranchise.com. You'll go there and you'll get to learn a little bit more. You'll talk to my guy, TJ, one of the best dudes I know, and he's our development guy here for RedLine, and he'll walk you down that path. So, people might seek us out for different reasons, so it's kind of a broad question. If there is some 12-year-old listening to this podcast, tap mom on the shoulder, tell her you want to be great, or at least find your potential. And man, all kids deserve to find their potential, I feel. And I think that's our duty and our responsibility. Just give them the tools necessary to find their potential. Sports are the coolest, man. They're so much fun. I'm a coach. I love it. I love youth athletics. It is my favorite drug of all time. It's the best. So, I think if a parent just wants their kids to love sports more, this is a great place to start. And like, we're going to help develop them as an athlete first. And if they're a better athlete, that'll translate over to any sport. So keep that in mind. It's just, the best football player on the field is typically the fastest, most agile, or jumps the highest, or is the strongest. Like, those are the attributes that we develop. We're pretty agnostic. We serve all sports, but no sports at the same time, because again, we're just building better athletes. So yeah, I think bring your kid to RedLine is a no-brainer. Of course, I'm the CEO. I'm biased, but like, my kids are in there 2-3 days a week, and the results are in the pudding. And we test everything, baseline tests, measure improvements. It's fun to watch. It's good to show the kids as well that hard work leads to a result, and that result is measurable, and we can show you how far you've come, regardless of whether they're an elite athlete or just a beginner. And the most fun part is the beginners, they improve the most on the front end, right? So it's kind of like, take somebody who's overweight, never gone to the gym, and now they're trying to do things right. They drop weight in a hurry. And the fit people are like a little upset about that because they can't lose the weight that way. Same thing with kids and athletes. If you're deconditioned, haven't done something, or haven't done much, we can move the needle far and fast, which gives them confidence and makes them buy into this lifestyle and want to keep coming back. So that's awesome too. So I think I think it's great for parents. I think it's great for kids. And if if you're an entrepreneur and you don't love your job, like there's no better place in the world that you could be on a day-to-day basis than a RedLine. Good news is my office backs right up to one. But when I'm having a day, like one of those days, I just walk next door, decompress, start giving high fives to kids as they're running by, and just get to feel the energy and the positivity that comes out of that place. It's so much fun. So yeah, man, we're not hard to find. We're not hard to find.
I love that, man. I've got I'm bubbling ready to get my twins. They're 8 weeks, but I'm sure that they could start.
We
doing
could just
something.
sign an LOI.
Yeah,
or
I'm
something,
sure with my height and athletic ability, I see 2 future Caitlin Clarks, definitely for sure, right there. Yeah,
they have a potential. Let's help them reach it.
There we
whatever
go,
that
there we
might
go.
be.
Yeah, maybe not, but they got potential, man. That's awesome. Well, Brad, you have been a heck of a co-host.
I appreciate you having me. Let me fill in.
Yeah, man.
Hopefully Brad makes
You
it
did
out
a
of
great job.
this stage of
Yeah.
life to be able to come back.
That's true. Yeah, we don't know. He could not make it back.
It's true.
That happens.
Yeah.
Sometimes parenting wins. Just takes them over. So, no, it's been great having both of you. I really, really appreciate the time. I think our listeners are just going to love this. So, all of you Daily Leader fans out there, like, subscribe, follow us, do all those things, and we'll see you again next week.